All right, welcome everyone to the deep dive. Today we're going deep on something, well, pretty basic.
Basic?
Yeah, like we all kind of assume it matters, but maybe don't always think about why. We're talking about experience.
Okay. I see where you're going with this.
Right, like qualifications, knowing what you're doing that should be important in jobs, in running countries, in just like life.
Makes sense. So what's the catch? I mean, why are we doing a whole deep dive on something so well obvious?
Because if it's so obvious, how come history is just full of examples where ignoring experience caused massive problems?
Oh, I see. It's that gap between what logically should be true and what actually happens.
Exactly. And we're not just talking about, like, messing up a recipe or something. We're talking big stuff. Failed businesses, countries falling apart, even, like, messing up history itself by not understanding it well enough.
So that's our puzzle for today. Why does this keep happening? Why do we sometimes end up with people in charge who, well, maybe aren't the best fit for the job?
Right. And we've got a ton of sources to dig into. Historical stuff, how our brains work, the way societies are set up, all trying to figure out this weird tension between knowing experience matters and then not acting like it does.
This is going to be fascinating. I'm already intrigued.
Me too. And it's not just some abstract idea. This has a very real consequences for everyone, which honestly is what makes this deep dive so important.
Couldn't agree more. So where do we start?
Well, our sources take us way back, like hunter-gatherer times.
Wow, going way back to the basics.
And even then, right, you didn't need a fancy degree to know who the skilled people were.
Right. The person who consistently brought back food, made the best tools, that was obvious.
Exactly. Their track record, what they could actually do, that was their qualification.
It was about survival. Experience wasn't some certificate. It was proven by results. Those were the folks people looked up to.
Natural leaders, in a way.
Exactly. A direct link between your ability and your place in the group.
Now, this part blew my mind. One source, I think it's Snippet ID 7, suggests that the whole reason writing was invented might be because people needed to record those crucial survival skills, to pass them down, So even back then, expertise was valuable, something to preserve, to teach the next generation.
That's profound when you think about it. It wasn't just about one person's skill. It was about building up a shared knowledge base for the whole community.
Right, like expertise is a group effort, even from the beginning.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's jump ahead a bit to the medieval period. We get guilds, right?
The guilds. Talk about taking expertise seriously.
Seriously, these apprenticeships, sometimes 10 years long, you had to work your way up, apprentice, journeyman, and then the big one, the masterpiece.
Judged by your peers, no less.
Yeah.
High stakes.
That wasn't just like a participation trophy. That was proof you knew your stuff, judged by experts.
It was a whole system built on keeping standards high. These guilds controlled who even got into a profession.
It makes you think about how much we value that today, Like, do we have anything that rigorous now?
It's a good question. It really highlights how seriously they took the idea of proven competence.
Now, fast forward again, 16th century, universities pop up.
Yes, the rise of the learned professions. Doctors, lawyers, theologians.
And not just anyone could go, right? Snippet ID 12 points out that it was mostly the wealthier folks. But even then, you start to see this link between education, book smarts, and meeting professional standards.
It's interesting, isn't it? Snippet ID 8 even hints at this connection between universities and those earlier guilds.
So formal learning starts getting tied to those established trades, professions.
Precisely. Universities are focusing on the theory, the big ideas behind the practical work. It's a shift in how we think about gaining expertise.
Now, this one's cool. Ancient China, their imperial exams, we're talking dynasties, Sui, Tang. Song Snippet ID 13 has the details.
Yes, a truly fascinating system.
It wasn't about who your dad was. They literally tested people on knowledge, writing skills to become government officials.
Meritocracy in action. And that system lasted for centuries.
I know, right? It helped unify the whole empire, gave their rulers legitimacy. They took it seriously.
It tells you something about how much they valued a competent government. Having educated, knowledgeable people in charge.
But of course, there's a catch.
There always is.
Snippet ID 13, again, it mentions that literacy, having books that cost money, not everyone had equal access to that.
Right. So it was merit-based in theory, but the reality on the ground, well, probably not so equal.
Makes you wonder, how much can you truly call it meritocratic if not everyone has the same starting line?
It's a tension we still grapple with today. How do you reward competence fairly when not everyone has the same opportunities to develop it.
Such a good point. But, okay, before we get too modern, we got to talk about the ancient Greeks, the Romans. Mesopotamia's snippet ID 16 is all about this.
The foundations of so much of what we consider knowledge.
I know. Astronomy, predicting how the stars move, Euclid and his geometry, Archimedes. These were people pushing the boundaries of what we knew.
And not just theory. These often had practical applications. This wasn't just thinking in a vacuum.
And snippet ID 17 reminds us their work still impacts us today. That's real staying power.
Right. The enduring legacy of focused expertise.
Upper.
And how it shapes not just one generation, but centuries to come. Pretty amazing.
Okay, so we see this pattern, right? Valuing experience, knowledge, it pops up all over. But then, like our source puts it, there's this shadow of inexperience and things, they get messy.
Oh yeah, when things go wrong, they can go really wrong.
Exactly.
Yes.
Like political leadership. We've got Qin or Shi in China, inherited power but no experience, easily manipulated, and bam, the Qin dynasty collapses, snippet ID 18.
A classic example of what can happen when power lands in the wrong hands. It's not enough to just have power. You have to know what to do with it. And that takes experience, understanding how things work.
And then Jin Hudi, also China, snippet ID 18 again. This time it's suspected mental challenges, not just inexperience, but it highlights how important, well, basic competence is for a leader. The whole dynasty crumbled during his reign.
It's a stark reminder that the well-being of so many people rests on the shoulders of their leaders. Good intentions aren't enough. You need the ability to lead, to make sound judgments.
And bringing it a little closer to home, we've got Ben Carson, 21st century USA HUD secretary.
A brilliant neurosurgeon, no doubt.
But, and snippet ID 19 points this out, folks criticized him for not really having experience in housing policy, urban development, stuff that's kind of, crucial for that job.
It's a good example of how expertise is specific. Being amazing at one thing doesn't automatically make you great at something completely different.
Right. Like, brain surgery is amazing, but does it prepare you for running a huge government agency? Maybe not.
It raises the question, how transferable is expertise from one field to another?
Right. And sometimes that mismatch can have, well, bad consequences. Like, we've got Major General William Elphinstone, 19th century Afghanistan.
Oh, this is a tragic one.
Inexperienced, poor decisions, and his whole army gets wiped out, snippet ID 20. This isn't just theory. This is people's lives lost because of a lack of, well, knowing what to do.
Military leadership is so specific. It demands experience, strategic thinking, the ability to make decisions under pressure. Elphinstone's story is a heartbreaking example of what happens when those things are missing.
And it's not just politics, military stuff, right?
Yeah.
Our sources talk about businesses, especially startups.
Ah, yes, the startup world. So much potential, so many pitfalls.
And bad management, inexperience, those are huge reasons why they fail. Apparently, snippet ID 22.
It's a classic issue. Starting a business takes so many skills. Understanding your market, managing money, leading a team.
And snippet ID 25 gets specific, like not doing market research, messing up the finances, making bad hires.
Basic stuff, but if you don't get those right, well, the whole thing can fall apart pretty quickly.
It's wild. And then there's this idea of accidental managers, snippet ID 27. People who get promoted, but they haven't been trained to manage.
Oh, I've seen that happen. Doesn't usually end well.
Nope. Low morale, people quitting, the whole team suffers. And it all comes back to this idea of experience, or the lack of it.
Just because someone's good at their individual job doesn't mean they'll be good at managing other people. Leading a team takes a different skill set.
So it's deeper than just, like, messing up a project, right? Our source talks about the wider impact, like how can we trust institutions if they're full of people who don't know what they're doing?
It erodes that trust over time. And without experienced people to guide the next generation, standards can start to slip.
Exactly. Like, think about history itself. Snippet ID 28 points out that if historians aren't careful, rigorous, we can end up with biased, incomplete accounts of the past.
It's not just about getting the facts right. It's about interpretation. Understanding the nuances, the context, that takes a deep, qualified understanding.
So it affects everything. And honestly, that's kind of scary when you think about it.
It is a bit sobering. It makes you realize how crucial expertise is, not just for individuals, but for society as a whole.
Okay, before we get to doom and gloom, let's talk about these polar explorers, Roald Amundsen and Ernest Shackleton.
Oh yes, two very different approaches to exploration.
Right. Amundsen, super meticulous, planned everything, and guess what? He succeeded. Reached the South Pole first.
A testament to careful planning and drawing on the experience of others.
But then there's Shackleton. His endurance expedition, a total disaster, poorly prepared.
True, but what a story of survival.
And that's the thing, right? Shackleton's story is so dramatic, it's become legendary, even though he, well, failed in his main goal.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Snippet ID 21 talks about this. We seem drawn to the underdog, the dramatic struggle, even if it wasn't the most effective approach.
So it makes you think, do we sometimes value a good story more than actual competence?
It's a good question to consider. We're emotional creatures, after all. Sometimes a compelling narrative can be more persuasive than a list of qualifications.
Okay, so why are we so drawn to inexperience sometimes? Our source delves into the psychology, and one big word pops up. Charisma.
Ah, yes, the charismatic leader. They can be incredibly persuasive, can't they?
Snippet ID 32 defines it, this ability to influence people, inspire them, and it's linked to transformational leadership, painting a vision, getting people excited.
Like, think about some of the famous leaders in history. They may not have always been the most experienced, but they had this ability to connect with people on an emotional level.
Right. Snippets ID 36 and 37 talk about how they project certainty, inspire hope, create a bond with their followers. That can be so powerful it can overshadow a lack of, well, actual know-how.
Especially during uncertain times, people crave that sense of hope, that feeling that someone's in control, even if that control is more perceived than real.
Okay, buckle up, because now we're getting into the brain stuff. Cognitive biases. These mental shortcuts our minds use, and sometimes they trip us up.
Ah, yes, the quirks of human psychology. Always a fascinating area to explore.
So we've got affinity bias, liking people similar to ourselves, confirmation bias, only seeing what supports what we already believe. The halo effect. Someone's good at one thing, so they must be good at everything. Snippet ID 39 and 40 talk about those.
And then there's the confidence heuristic, snippet ID 44. We tend to think if someone sounds confident, they must be right.
Right. And our source even mentions, get this, that a simple smile can make someone seem more trustworthy, even if they're inexperienced. Snippet ID 45.
It's incredible how these subtle cues can influence our perceptions of competence.
It's like our brains are playing tricks on us. And on top of all that, we've got this love for novelty, for rejecting the norm. Snippets ID 46 and 47 are all about this.
That's a natural human impulse, isn't it? To want to shake things up, try something new, especially when we're feeling disillusioned with how things are.
So if the established way, the experts, haven't solved the problem, people might be more willing to gamble on someone new, someone who, well, maybe doesn't know how things work.
The outsider appeal. They haven't been corrupted by the system. They're a blank slate. But of course, a blank slate doesn't necessarily equal competence.
And Snippet ID 6 reminds us this rejection of the norm, it can extend to questioning even basic qualifications. It's like experience itself becomes suspect.
It's a dangerous path to go down. While questioning the status quo is important, rejecting expertise outright leaves us vulnerable to those who may not have our best interests at heart.
Okay, so zoom out even more. We've got to talk about how societies themselves can influence this whole thing.
Absolutely. The social and political context plays a huge role.
Propaganda, controlling information, that's huge, right? Snippet ID 48 talks about how governments, media, they can shape how we view people, regardless of their qualifications.
Think about state-run media, censorship, even just carefully chosen words and images. It's all designed to influence how we perceive things.
It's like the image becomes more important than the substance. Snippet ID 52 uses Senator Joseph McCarthy as an example, how fear and strong rhetoric can get people on your side, even if you don't have the facts to back it up.
A powerful example of how manipulation can overshadow a lack of substance. And sadly, it's a tactic that's still used today.
Oh, yeah. Snippet ID 46 mentions modern political marketing, spin doctors crafting the message, not necessarily focusing on, the truth.
Image management over genuine qualification. It's a worrying trend.
And then there's how those in power can use what's already wrong in society to their advantage.
Exploiting vulnerabilities. It's a sadly common tactic.
Right. Snippet ID 46 and 55 talk about this. Economic problems, people are unhappy, feeling like the system's failed them, and then someone comes along.
Offering simple solutions. Scapegoats. Blaming the elites. Snippet ID 53 talks about this populist approach.
And they might make big promises, unrealistic ones, as Snippet ID 47 points out. But when people are desperate, they're more willing to believe, to take a chance on someone new, even if that person has no clue how to actually fix things.
It's about appealing to emotions, not reason. And in times of crisis, emotions often win out.
And it feeds into this cycle of disillusionment that Snippet ID 46 talks about. We get tired of the same old politicians, even if they're experienced, and then
we take a gamble on the newcomer, the outsider who promises change, a fresh start. Their lack of experience is spun as a positive. They're untainted, haven't been corrupted by the system.
It's crazy. But, okay, it's not all doom and gloom. Our source also talks about how experience, qualification, they can lead to amazing things.
Oh, absolutely. There are countless examples of how competence, true expertise, has shaped the world for the better.
Like, we've got George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Eleanor Roosevelt, Gandhi. Snippets ID 58 and 59 talk about these leaders. They had the skills, the experience, and they made a positive impact.
They weren't just figureheads. They were individuals whose knowledge and experience allowed them to navigate complex challenges and lead their people through difficult times.
And going way back, Hatshepsut in Egypt, Julius Caesar. Snippets ID 60 and 35 again, leaders who use their expertise to achieve great things.
It shows how crucial it is to have capable people at the helm, people who understand the intricacies of leadership and governance. It's not about luck, it's about skill.
And our source is really big on education. Training. Snippet ID 63 emphasizes how investing in those things leads to innovation, societal progress.
It's the foundation of a skilled workforce, a knowledgeable citizenry.
Right. It's about building up that human capital, making sure people have the tools they need to succeed. Snippet ID 64 talks about career readiness, having those core competencies, real-world experience. And then Snippet ID 65, continuing education, always learning, always improving.
Because the world is constantly changing, and we need to adapt. It's not just about what you learn in school, it's about a lifelong commitment to growth and development.
And Snippet ID 63 again, it mentions how the rise of formal education in Europe, that went hand in hand with putting more value on qualifications.
Education creates a baseline of knowledge, a common understanding that can be built upon. It's a vital step in fostering a society that values and rewards expertise.
And we can't forget about institutions, right? Like rules, standards, all that stuff that makes sure people are actually qualified to do their jobs.
Institutions provide the framework, the checks and balances that help ensure competence.
Exactly. Snippet ID 11 talks about how they protect the public interest. Like, historically, we had those medieval guilds setting standards, regulating their trades. Snippet ID 10.
And today we have professional associations, regulatory bodies, in all sorts of fields. Snippet ID 12 mentions this. Think about medicine, law, engineering. You need licenses, credentials, ethical codes to make sure people are meeting a certain standard.
It's all about trust, right? Yeah. Knowing that the person you're going to, the system you're relying on, it's built on some level of proven competence.
Exactly. Institutions help maintain that trust by ensuring accountability and upholding standards of practice.
Okay, so we've covered a lot, but there's this whole other layer we have to talk about. Bias.
Unfortunately, bias has always been a factor in how we perceive and value expertise.
Our source talks about how age, gender, they play a huge role in this, both historically and today.
It's about recognizing those ingrained biases and actively working to counter them.
Like, women, they've been fighting an uphill battle forever. Even back in those guild days, Snippet ID 8 mentions how limited their roles were, and it's still happening.
It's disheartening, but unfortunately true. Despite progress, there are still systemic barriers in place that hinder women's advancement.
Snippet ID 67 is full of examples. Unconscious bias, being paid less for the same work, fewer chances to get promoted, people not taking them seriously as leaders, even when they're killing it in their roles.
It's not just about fairness. It's about recognizing the immense loss of talent and potential when we fail to create a level playing field.
And young people, they face their own biases, right? Snippet ID 70 talks about this, seen as inexperienced, lower status, judged more harshly, sometimes even by older colleagues who might not take them seriously.
Ageism is a real problem, and it can affect individuals at all stages of their careers. Young leaders, especially, often have to work harder to prove their competence and overcome these ingrained assumptions.
And then put those two together, young women leaders, it's like a double whammy of bias, as Snippet ID 70 points out.
The intersection of ageism and sexism creates a particularly challenging environment for young women in leadership roles. They're fighting against multiple layers of bias.
So how do we fix this? Snippet ID 42 has some ideas. Being aware of our own biases, training to overcome them, making sure hiring and promotions are fair, giving everyone equal access to education, mentors.
Creating a culture of inclusion where we value diversity, different perspectives, that's key. It's not just about checking boxes. It's about recognizing that a diversity of experiences and backgrounds strengthens us all.
And honestly, it comes back to that core idea, valuing what people bring to the table, their skills, their knowledge, regardless of their age, gender, anything else.
It's about recognizing and celebrating the unique talents and contributions of all individuals, regardless of their background. That's how we create a truly equitable and thriving society.
Okay, so big deep dive today. We've gone from ancient history to brain science to the way our whole world works. And I think the takeaway is pretty clear. Experience matters.
It's not just a nice to have. It's essential for individual success, for organizational effectiveness, for a healthy and functioning society.
Undervaluing it, well, that has consequences. We've seen it throughout history. We see it today in all sorts of ways.
And understanding why we sometimes ignore experience, why inexperience can seem appealing, well, that helps us guard against making those mistakes ourselves.
So for everyone listening, here's a final thought. Take a look around, your own life, your work, the bigger picture. Where do you see experience being undervalued? What are the consequences of that? And maybe, just maybe, take a moment to think about your own judgments, your own biases, when you're deciding who's competent, who's worth listening to. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
This is DigitView.